If you were black, born in the South of America in the 1960s, your life was destined to be miserable. Be careful in everything you do. When you bought tickets, took a bus, read and ate, you would be forcibly separated from whites. Even if you wanted to use the bathroom, you could only use the shabby bathroom for the black. Fortunately, there was a postman. According to what he saw and heard of, he compiled guidelines for black survival. It listed in detail the places that blacks could go in and out. This movie also won the Best Picture of the 91st Academy Award. The movie is based on a true story. The movie is called Green Book. At the beginning of the movie, a ball was held. The guests wore fancy clothes. Tony, who worked here as a bouncer, had a professional way to carry his work. Once, a difficult situation happened in the ball. Tony always asked people out politely. When he came home from work just in time of dinner where his father-in-law and 6 brothers were eating, Tony announced bad news. From tomorrow, the Copacabana would be closed for 2 months. He was temporarily unemployed. Looking at the gentle wife and his 2 children, who started their school soon, Tony's pressure doubled. To make some extra money, he went to the restaurant to take part in the eating contest. Finally, with 27 hamburgers, he won a bonus of $5,000. But this was not a long-term plan after all. Fortunately, Tony was introduced to a new job. Arriving at the interview, Tony was deeply overwhelmed by the stately room. To his surprise, the person who hired him was a black pianist. Don Shirley was a talented pianist. From an early age, he showed his talent prominently. He acquired various titles at a young age. He was also invited to play in GZT twice. It was a standard, upper-class society. Don planned on a tour to Southern America. He needed a temporary driver for 2 months. There was no need to discuss salary, but the racial contradiction in America was very deep. To complete the tour, the shrewd and strong Tony became Don's first choice. However, Tony himself was a racist. Even when a black man who came to repair the pipe used a cup, he would also throw it into the trash can. He didn't want to work for blacks. Tony offered a weekly salary of $500, so Don knew to back down his attempt. The next morning, Don still called Tony on the phone, saying hello to Tony's wife politely and telling Tony he was accepted for the job. After all, Tony was the one who needed money, so he took the job. Before they set out, Dolores told Tony to be careful on the way, also remember to write a letter to them when he got there and try to get home on Christmas Eve. It was an annual reunion day as important as New Year Eve. Though Don was a black man, he had a noble temperament and extraordinary conversation. In contrast, Tony was a white man. After many work experiences, he had developed an unconventional character, gulping at food, also passing through every car without giving any signal. Don reminded Tony, except for driving, the most important thing was to ensure that before each performance started, the piano used for the performance was safe. They arrived at the first stop that night, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Though skin color might be different, music was a common emotion of mankind. Don's first performance opened Tony's eyes. His flexible fingers danced on the white keys. Tony was completely impressed at this moment. In the letter to his wife, Tony wrote truthfully, "I saw Dr. Shelley play the piano tonight. He didn't play the piano like a black man, like Libras, but better than him." The next evening, they came to Hanover, Indiana. The host lacked sincerity. Even the piano was shabby and full of garbage on it. Tony went to ask the host and was insulted with ugly words. Finally, he could only negotiate calmly. Just like that, they set up a Steinway piano for Don. Then they came to Kentucky, the birthplace of KFC. To Tony, who was obsessed with hamburgers, it was like paradise was here, not to mention how cool it was. After passing a KFC shop, Tony went on his way happily with a bucket of fried chicken. He was happy to eat and share it with Don. As a member of high society, Don certainly wouldn't eat with a mouth full. As a result, Don didn't let him down. Sure enough, no one could escape the law of true fragrance. Tony also took the opportunity to educate Don. Whatever you do, do it 100%. When you work, work. When you laugh, laugh. When you eat, eat like it's your last meal. Until dusk, they came further south to Louisville. Here, Don could only follow the guidelines of the Green Book, staying in a cheap motel. He arranged for Tony to stay alone in the White Hotel. Looking at the people who he couldn't fit in with, Don turned and went out for a drink. Tony was just getting ready to sleep. He was informed that Don was in trouble. Don turned out to be surrounded by several white gangsters in the bar. Tony arrived in time, spitting out a few words to the white men and pretending that he had a gun. Just then, they could leave the bar without being beaten up. Out of the bar, Tony said angrily, "From now on, you can't go anywhere without me." Don asked in reply, "Do you really have a gun?" "Of course not." The next day, they went sunbathing and continued to the south. Their car was unfortunately damaged on the way. At this time, on the farmland across the road, countless blacks were working. Don, who got out of the car to breathe, attracted their attention. They were also black compatriots, but by the road a few meters away, there was separated into 2 worlds. The next day, Tony wrote to his wife as usual. Don took a look. "What kind of mess did you write? This is a wrong word." Fortunately, there were no dirty words. Don was a well-educated man with 3 doctorates. He started improvising. Tony kept writing down his words. I love you the day I met you. I love you today and I will love you the rest of my life. Tony's wife, who received the letter, was moved to tears. Though Don was brilliant, he was discriminated against because of his skin color. He fancied a suit, but because he was black, the shopkeeper didn't even allow him to try it on. In the evening, Don vented all his grievances and anger on the keys. When the perfect performance was over, thunderous applause made him regain a trace of self-esteem. Though Don was respected on the stage, when stepped off the stage, black was what defined him. He couldn't use the public bathroom but a temporary toilet built only with wooden boards in the yard. The two continued south. Every performance was a success. They were also close to each other. On a rainy night, they were stopped by the police. Seeing Don in the back seat, the police told him to get off the car. When being insulted that he was a half-black, Tony completely lost control and punched the police. Just like that, the two were thrown into jail. Facing the aggressive officers, Don argued, I want to make a call. I have the right to call my lawyer. The officers laughed. You, a little black man, has a lawyer. Come on, fight, I'll let you fight now. After the call, Don took time to teach Tony a lesson. You'll never win with violence, Tony. You only win when you stick to your dignity. Dignity never fails. It wasn't long until the officer received a call from the governor and was told to release Don immediately. When they got back on the road, Tony laughed when he learned the truth. Tony had called attorney Robert Kennedy to be released and the officers could be sent home and jobless for a few years. Don was unhappy because of Tony's recklessness. After a heated argument, Don got out of the car and went into the rain. And rich white folks let me play piano for them, because it makes them feel cultured. But as soon as I step down that stage, I go right back to being another nigger to them. So if I'm not black enough, and I'm not white enough, and I'm not man enough, so tell me what am I? The monologue seemed to touch Tony. From then on, he accepted the black man from his heart. They also stayed in the same hotel, pulling pranks on each other like friends. When it came to the family, Don was shielded up. Tony also said the only quote that spoke to him was that, there are too many lonely people in the world who are afraid to take the first step alone. The performance continued. They also came to the last stop, Alabama. This was also where the problem of discrimination was most serious. The manager warmly welcomed Don, but he arranged a narrow abandoned warehouse for him as a dressing room for the show. It was time for dinner. The manager refused to let Don into the restaurant and said that this was a tradition that had continued for many years. Don didn't compromise this time. Either you let me eat here or I won't play today. The manager wanted to bribe Tony. He was almost beaten up.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
What do you mean, let's get out of here?
The two came to the restaurant for the black. Their suits seemed a little out of place. Fortunately, there was no conflict. Facing the inquiry of the bartender, Tony revealed Don's identity. Don didn't wriggle, he went straight to the stage. This piano was not Steinway. The accompanist was not a D-class, but Don had never experienced this kind of happiness. When they went out, Tony took out a gun and fired to the sky. It turned out that the two of them had just been watched.
I knew you had a gun.
They finally got on the way home. All the way to the north, snowflakes began to fall heavily. They were stopped again in the evening. Fortunately, the officer just reminded him of a flat tire. It was no hardship on the way to the north. At the end of the film, they finally got back to New York at Christmas. Tony invited Don to his house for the holiday, but Don refused. He went to the mansion alone. It was quiet and cold. In contrast, Tony, who had just entered the door, was immediately surrounded by his family. The atmosphere was full of happiness. The whole family was eating with laughter. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. A familiar figure stood outside the door. Tony came forward and hugged Don. He turned around and introduced Don to his family. The family was stunned for a moment, then began to warmly welcome Don. This was the end of the film. Sum it up in one word: discrimination is everywhere in the world. Only when you stick to your dignity and be neither humble nor arrogant, may you ride the wind and waves to happiness. I wonder if today's story can move you. Alright, that's all for today. I'm Harry. I'll see you next time.